Episode 1. Welcome to the Funny Pages. In a world where heroes wear capes, villains scheme in shadows, and grown adults argue about whether Superman could beat Goku, there exists one man brave enough to dive into the inky depths, the sequential art storytelling. Shad.
That man is me, y'all. I'm not actually that brave, though. I just really like comic books. Welcome, true believers, to a Jest Comics. I'm your host, Shad, Jester. And yes, that's really my last name. It says so on my birth certificate, and everything. This little beauty right here, this is what all started for me. Amazing Fantasy number 15, August 1962. Not an original, obviously. If I had an original, I'd be hosting this from a solid golden mansion instead of a basement that smells like faintly pizza rolls and broken dreams. But this is where Spider-Man first appeared. And more importantly, this is where 8-year-old Shad Jester first discovered the comics weren't just colorful pictures. They were entire universes awaiting to be explored. Uncle Ben taught Peter Parker that with great power comes great responsibility. He taught me that with great comic book obsession comes great credit card debt. And you can say that again. Speaking of which, hi Mom, I know you're watching. The basement apartment is temporary, I promise. Now, I know what some of y'all are thinking. Shad, what another comic book show? The internet's already drowning in comic book content already. And today I'd say, you're absolutely right. But here's the thing. I'm not here to tell you about what comics you should read or rank, or the top 10 superhero origin stories per millionth time. I'm here because comics are funny. Really funny. Not just the funny ones though. We'll talk about those later. But the wonderful, ridiculous, beautiful, absurd, gloriously bonkers world of sequential art that somehow convinced us all that a man in a red-blue pajamas swinging around New York makes perfect sense, y'all. We're going to dive into the weird history, the bizarre storylines, the questionable fashion choices. I'm looking at you, 90s Cable. And yes, we'll celebrate the genuine artistry and storytelling that makes this medium so special, y'all. But first, let me tell you how I went from a kid who traded his lunch money for X-Men comics to a grown man, well, still trade his lunch money for X-Men comics. But now I have a camera pointing at me while I do it. Picture this. Fort Smith, Arkansas, 1987. A nerdy kid in big thick glasses walking to the convenience store to quench his thirst on a hot summer day. But today, he would leave with not only his color, but his first comic book. Maybe Fantasy 15. He did not realize it, but this one purchase would change his life forever. First, it was Spider-Man. Amazing Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. That's right, Peter Parker. And he was a young, scrawny, nerdy kid who became a spider-bitten superhero. Wow, my allowance never stood a chance. Then, X-Men. And then the Cape Crusader, Batman himself. By high school, y'all, I had over 3,000 comic books. My mom kept asking me, when was I going to grow out this phase? That was 30 years ago, Mom. I think we can safely say this isn't a phase anymore. It's a lifestyle. A very, very expensive lifestyle at that. But like my Uncanny X-Men 137, the Dark Phoenix Saga conclusion, I must have read that thing 100 times, y'all. And even though the cover's practically falling off, and there's a mystery stain on page 12, I'm pretty sure it's from my Slurpee incident in 1991. That thing is still one of my most prized possessions. And that's what I want this show to be about. Not just comics itself, but why we love them. Why do we care so much about fictional characters that we argue for hours about whether Wolverine can take Captain America in a fight? The answer is yes, by the way. Come on. So, what can you expect from this Jest Comics moving forward? Well, I'm glad you asked. Every episode, we're going to explore a different corner of the comic book universe. We'll have theme episodes like worst comic changes in comic history, and trust me, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Superman's mullet. We'll dive into the comics that should never have been made. Yes, Archie versus Predator, y'all. It's a real crossover that exists. And no, I can't explain why they made it. We'll celebrate underrated gems you've never heard of, because every Spider-Man there's a squirrel girl waiting to steal your heart and your nuts. That came out wrong, y'all. No. We'll explore the evolution of comic book art. From the four-color printing of the Golden Age to the digital masterpieces of today. We'll talk about the writers and artists who shaped the medium, Stan Lee and the Jack Kirby's, but also the lesser-known creators who deserve recognition. And yes, we'll tackle the big questions that keep comic fans up at night. Could the Flash so fast to travel through time? How does Spider-Man actually work from a physics standpoint? And most importantly, why does Batman carry that shark repellent in his utility belt? I mean, come on. That one hasn't actually answered, by the way. We'll get there. One day. Welcome to the Nostalgia Corner, where we take a trip back to the days when comics cost 12 cents and Spider-Man can move planets. And flying really, really fast. Really fast. Let's talk about comic book ads for a minute. Remember these? Sea monkeys? X-ray spec? 100 army men for $1? I spent so much time staring at these ads, dreaming about ordering everything in here. Charles Atlas promising to turn me from a 98-pound weakling into a muscle-bound hero, which, spoiler alert, didn't work out. I am now a 180-pound weakling, so I guess that's progress. But that's the best part about old comics. Wasn't just the stories, it was a whole experience. The smell of the newsprint, the feel of the paper, the way the colors would sometimes be slightly off-brighters so the Spider-Man's face would always have a weird pink shadow. Look at this, poor Spider looks like he's having an allergic reaction to his own costume. But somehow, that's just added to the charm. These weren't perfect digital creations. They were physical objects made by humans, with all the beautiful imperfections that came with that. And the spinner racks, oh man, the spinner racks. For those of you too young to remember, comics used to be sold in these rotating wire displays in drugstores, grocery stores, anywhere that could have a corner to spare. You'd walk up to the rack like it was a slot machine, hoping that this week's haul would include the issue you've been waiting for, that's for sure. Sometimes you'd find a comic that would be there for 3 months somehow got lost behind the others, like finding buried treasure. In the letter columns, before internet forums, before social media, if you wanted to discuss comics with other fans, you'd write actually a letter with a pen and a paper and mailed it. Look at this, actual handwritten letters from fans printed in comic. Dear Stan and Jack, I think the Fantastic Four should fight more monsters. Signed, Tommy from Ohio. And Stan Lee would actually respond. Can you imagine tweeting at Kevin Feige today and getting a personal response printed in this next Marvel movie?
Why comics matter.
Okay, time to get a little serious for a minute. Don't worry, I'll throw some jokes. I have a repetition to maintain, you know. Here's the thing about comic books that I think gets lost sometimes in all the movie adaptations and merchandise. Comics are a uniquely powerful storytelling medium. They combine visual art with narratives in a way that's different from movies, different from books, different from anything else. In a comic, time moves at whatever pace you need it to be. A single moment can be stretched across multiple pages, or years can pass in a single panel. The reader controls the pacing. You can spend 5 minutes studying the detail in one panel, or race through the action sequence as fast as you can turn the page. In a diversity of stories, comics aren't just superheroes. Though we love our Cape Crusaders, we've got horror comics, romance comics, autobiographies, historical fiction, science fiction, fantasy, slice of life stories, and all kinds of others. You want to read about mouse fighting Nazis? We got that. A tale about a Shaolin cowboy against a legion of gourmets from 4th level hell? That's a real thing too. Yes, a horror, fantasy, western humor with zombies. Wow, I mean that's awesome. Comics have tackled racism, sexism, war, poverty, mental health, identity, family, and love loss. Every human experience you can think of. And they've done it with a combination of words and pictures that can hit you in ways that pure text and visuals just can't match. Art Spiegelman won a Pulitzer Prize for The Moss, a comic book about the Holocaust told through anthropomorphic animals. When the Pulitzer community tried to figure out what category to put it in, they had to create a new one because comics didn't fit their existing framework. That's the power of the medium, right? Right there. So when people ask me why I care so much about comic books, why I devoted my life to collecting them, reading them, thinking about them, and now talking about them on a camera, it's because comics are literature. They are art. They are history. They are philosophy. They're entertainment. They're all wrapped up in one colorful package that costs $5, y'all. Plus, where can you see a billionaire in a bat costume punch a clown? That's just good entertainment right there, y'all. Before we wrap up, let's do some quick hits. Rapid fire fun facts that'll make you the most popular person at the local comic book shop. Stan Lee's real name was Stan Lieber. He created the name Stan Lee because he was saving his real name for the great American novel he planned to write someday. The first comic book was published in 1933 and was literally called Famous Funnies. Not very creative, but it got the job done. Did you know Superman couldn't originally fly? He could only leap tall buildings in a single bound because the idea of flight seemed too unrealistic. Apparently, a super strength and invulnerability were totally believable, but flying? That's where we draw the line. The Comics Code Authority, the censorship board that regulated comics from 1954 to 2011, banned the words horror and terror for comic book covers. They also banned zombies, vampires, and werewolves. Basically took all the fun out of stuff. Wonder Woman was created by a psychologist who also invented a lie detector test, which explains why she had a magic lasso and forces people to tell the truth. It all makes sense now. And my personal favorite, Wolverine was originally supposed to be a mutated Wolverine, not a human mutant. Can you imagine? Just a really angry badger with metal claws? Actually, that's not too different from what he is now. And that's a wrap on our first episode of Jest Comics. I hope you had as much fun as I did, y'all, because I really did. Which is saying something because I have the time of my life nerding out about comics. Here's what I want you to do. Go to your local comic book shop, browse around, pick up something you never read before, support the medium that's given us a decade of incredible stories, and will hopefully give us decades more. Share that love with someone new. Lend them your paperback. Explain why you think Grant Morrison's run on The Invisibles changed your life, or why you cry every time you read The Death of Superman. I still to this day. Comics are meant to be shared. They're meant to be discussed, debated, and yes, sometimes argued about until 3 a.m. at a convention hotel bars. That's what makes the community so special, y'all. Next week, we're diving deep into the more fabulous world of comic books. Until then, keep reading, keep questioning why Batman needs so many different colored bat suits, y'all. I don't know why he does that. And remember, in a world full of ordinary people, dare to be comic. I'm Shad Jester, and this has been Jest Comics. Same bat time, same bat channel, y'all. See what I did there? Bat time? Because Batman, I'll see myself out.